Well, hello and welcome everyone to the Magical Witchy World TV. I am Star Ravenhawk.
And I am Rhonda Allen, and welcome to Magical Witchy World TV.
And tonight we're proud to welcome Laura Gonzalez to the Magical Witchy World TV.
Yes.
Hello.
Hello. How are you?
I am good. How are you doing?
I'm okay. I'm so glad to be here and so different to be on this side. Oh,
I know, right? When
Oh,
that happens.
excellent. Well, welcome and welcome. We're really happy to have you here tonight, Laura. And I know it's not your first time. We've been on the show many in the past on our panels, etc. But we're happy to have you back as a solo. And to introduce you to everyone again, let me go ahead and go through your bio. It is extensive. I want to acknowledge all of that. So, Reverend Laura Gonzalez offers her intuitive gifts as a spiritual and community healer, priestess, and minister, and is a practitioner of traditional Mexican folk magic, native philosophies, and North American paganism in the goddess tradition. Her community activism is an extension of her spiritual practice. She is an advocate for the Latin American pagan and LGBTQIA communities and cares deeply about women's rights, suicide prevention, and diversity inclusion. Laura co edits the e zine El Caldero and has published there and in Circle Sanctuary magazine. She is also the founder of now you have to help me. Bolentin Pagano, is that correct? Am
that
I
is correct.
okay?
Yep.
Perfect. A meeting place for Spanish speaking pagans. Excellent. In the past, Laura has been deeply honored to present workshops at events such as Parliament of the World's Religions, Greater Chicagoland Pagan Pride Day, Fort Wayne Pagan Pride Day, St. Louis Pagan Picnic, Circle Sanctuary, and Pagan Spirit Gathering. She's a leader in her community as a resident Bruja healer and as a volunteer ESL teacher at the Aquinas Literacy Center. Laura Gonzalez is also a popular podcaster, yes, and producer of her own shows, Lunatic Mondays and Paganos del Mundo on Circle Sanctuary Network podcasts. You can also book a private session at Calendly, and we will stream that address later. And then we also have your Linktree info and your website info that we will put up for everybody later on. So thank you so much for
Yay.
joining us again.
Yeah,
It's a pleasure and an honor to have you back.
Thank
absolutely.
you.
Absolutely.
Likewise, it's my pleasure and my honor to be here with these wonderful women, witches, and beautiful people. And you're doing so much good work with this show. And I'm here every time you have me. So thank
Oh,
you.
thank you so much. We
Thank you so
appreciate
much.
that so much.
Yes,
So,
yes.
we wanted to kind of begin tonight with this nice conversation with you, with kind of beginning with not assuming what you call yourself, but kind of, and tell us the journey of what you started maybe calling yourself and where you ended up calling yourself, and give us a little bit of that journey and the word that you end up calling yourself.
I guess the first one was "Go away, you scare me." I have been psychic since I was a very young person. And as such, I used to scare my friends away, because I would tell them this and that is going to happen, and then things happen, and then they will be so scared. So, literally, the first one was expletive, go away, you're a witch. And so, people started calling me a witch when I was very, very young, probably 14 years old. I started hearing that. And then I started learning about paganism. I grew up in Mexico, which is very Catholic, so I was a very devout Catholic. And I went to church and I asked them, why do I see things? Why do I have premonitions? Why do I have this downloads and psychic situations happening? And they told me, well, because you're women and women are cursed and they're demonic and this and that. So that was my last interaction with the Catholic Church. So I had already been studying paganism because when you go to school in Mexico, they teach you about everything, not only just Mexican culture, but everything in the world. And we're very conscious of the culture of the world. And I was enamored with pagan cultures and native cultures growing up indigenous in Mexico. Um, and it's hard to divide where is my indigenous practice, personality, tradition come in and out, because when you grow up with something, it's hard to pinpoint it. But my mom will do spells and traditional healing stuff and whatnot. My dad was more of a New Ager type of guy when New Agers were new, in the 60s,
Yeah.
70s. So I grew up with that, and I started calling myself uh, pagan witch around 18, 20 years old. And of course, the indigenous practice, like I say, it's been there my whole life, because you don't walk around thinking like, oh yeah, I'm indigenous, you just are.
Yeah.
And so pagan witch is the one that I have had for the longest. Recently, and recently, in 2018, I got ordained as a minister, a priestess of the goddess, and I got ordained against my will. I have been practicing as a priestess of the goddess for many, many years, and my dear colleague and friend with whom I learned all this goddess practice and goddess tradition basically pinned me down and said, I don't want to hear it anymore. You're going to be ordained because you ought to be
Mhm.
retroactively, probably like 8 years. But, it happened in 2018. Christian,
Mm.
please, I love you. I'm kidding. But it was kind of like that. It was like, enough with the humbleness. You are a priestess and you ought to take the name. So ordained priestess of the goddess 2018, and then um 2020 Samhain blue moon, I got
Mm.
ordained online on the very first ever online ordination for Circle Sanctuary. So I'm also a minister with Circle Sanctuary since Samhain of 2020. um
Beautiful.
Those are some of the titles, monikers. People call me Blue Witch for obvious reasons. And
Right on.
so most people call me Blue Witch, but I
Okay.
like witch more
Okay.
than anything.
All
And
right.
I
Uh,
love feminist witch, because the
mm,
question is not
mm.
why you're feminist. The question is why you're not, So
That's an excellent question.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
Well,
Thank you.
that takes us to a part of the interview where we like to ask, now stepping backwards in time, to what actually, I mean, you introduced us a little bit, or you've mentioned it already a little bit with some of your growing up, but what brought you to this? You recognized you were having these experiences and you were saying things. Tell us a little bit more. Dive a little bit more into that story. What was happening?
I It literally goes back to me being 2, 3 years old. I can't remember. I think I was 2 years old when I have a near death experience. And I was already purple and stiff, and I got back. I had
Mm,
choked with a bone of a chicken thigh, and
oof.
and I got back. So in Mexico, people believe that if you cross the threshold, you come back with these gifts, which I don't like
Mhm.
calling them gifts. I like to call them abilities. So I have this abilities since I was very, very young. So I don't know any life without these abilities. When you go to Google psychic abilities, and there's a list of like 20 of them, I tick
Yeah.
almost all of them, except I don't see things, which I'm very
Mm,
happy about. but I can hear, I can smell, I can feel, I can, and
Yeah.
the strongest one within me is the precognition. I have a very strong precognitive ability. I just know
Mm.
things. I
Right.
just know
Yeah.
them. And it's not a voice that is outside of me. It's not a voice that I can hear, or else we will need to take me to the psychiatric unit. But it's a knowing. It's
Mhm.
like that you're Rhonda, right? You
Yes.
know you're
Yes.
Rhonda. You're not Laura. You're not Star. You're Rhonda. So that's how
Yes.
I know things. I just know them, and that certainly is the axis of my whole life. Everything rolls
Mm.
around that one ability of knowing things. So it was a lifelong journey of, why do I know things? Why
Yeah.
do I get this information? What am I going to do with this information? And as a young child, like I said, my mom will practice, my dad will practice on their own way, their different spirituality, but they couldn't answer that question.
Mm.
And I have found what I believe to be the answer, which is to serve my community, to serve the people, to have healed, to bring this information forth. And that is my medicine. And I believe that we
Yeah.
all have a little bag of medicine that we carry, and we ought to share it with the world. So I think that I was given this ability to help heal. And so that's why my livelihood is as a healer, I tease it that
Right.
a
Right.
bruja. Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Thank
Excellent.
you.
Thank you.
Thank
All
you.
right. So it kind of segues into this next question. From your point of view, what does it mean to be a witch? Not from anybody else's, but just
No,
your point of view. Yeah.
my point of view, a witch is a wise person.
Mhm.
So knowledge and wisdom, right? Knowledge, anybody can have knowledge. In this day and age, we all have knowledge to our fingertips, right?
Right.
Um, Knowing when to use that knowledge, how to apply that knowledge, that's wisdom. And to me, a witch is a wise woman or a wise person, right? It's not gendered. And I think the wiser the women, the bigger the witch, because we live in a
Mm.
society that if you step into your power, then you are menacing.
Mhm.
And as you are menacing to society and the status quo, then the bigger you are, witch with all capitals, right? So to me, being a witch is being a wise woman and stepping in your power and being your individual self, telling the status quo that you're not part of it, you know.
Mm.
Mm.
Yeah,
Making
that is
yourself.
a very
Yeah. Yeah.
powerful
It
thing.
is. It is. Kind of owning yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Yep.
When you look at your day to day, how do you incorporate your practice, your magic into your life? How does it fit in?
I have two says that I say a lot, and I kind of
Mhm.
have hijacked those hashtags on Instagram.
Uh-huh.
And the one is, you're a witch, act like one.
Brava.
And the second one, prego. And the second one is, when you lead a magical life, everything you do is magic. I don't have a boundary that separates my mundane day to day life from me being a woman of power, from me being a witch. So I am a witch 24/7, and
Mhm.
I do not serve my community 24/7 though, because you have to have healthy boundaries.
Boundaries. Yeah.
Yes.
But I am
Yes.
a witch 24/7. So it will be uncommon that you catch me, oh, I'm going to do a ritual. I have to do the spiritual thing. I have to separate this time of the day for me to go and dance naked under the moon and da da da. I am not
Mhm.
that kind of practitioner, but I can. Yesterday, I walked my dog and I saw the moon and she was so beautiful, and I started dancing the dances that I'm learning from our indigenous practice. And I just started chanting an indigenous chant, and I was like there,
Mhm.
wait on that sin, wait on that sin, wait on that sin, looking at the moon, you know. So there
Beautiful.
is, and I'm walking my dog while doing it, Um, quite often, if I have some pressing matter in my life, I take a shower and I just ask the goddess to wash me away and bring me wisdom. And most of them, my most brilliant ideas come to me when I'm in the shower because I think that's the womb of the goddess and the womb of the mother, right? We're naked and wet,
Mhm.
so
Yes.
we're
Yes.
connected. Um, when I'm cooking, which is not very often, my husband is the chef. But if
Mm.
I'm cooking,
I like
yeah, yeah, I never like cooking.
I
I
know you do,
never
Star.
learned.
that's me. That's exactly me.
I know that's you,
Yeah.
Star.
So,
Forget
and
it.
then right now,
That's why I was just like,
yeah, the no cooking team. I've been dealing with tendonitis. I have tendonitis on my hands,
Mm,
on both my uh, thumbs, basically.
mm,
So I have been doing even less of the cooking. But when I do the cooking, I I'm just meditating, and as I, um, how do you say, incorporate the food within each other, within
yes.
itself, I'm thinking about gratitude to the earth and nutriment to us, and then abundance and prosperity. And so I don't separate a set time for my practice. My practice is spread out 24/7. My dreams are quite profound quite often. So
Mhm,
uh, I now sleep a little bit better, but I used to be a insomniac, and I used to sleep like
mhm.
3, 4 hours a night. Now I'm doing a lot better, thank you. So I can sleep
Thank
better.
you. Yeah.
mm,
But yeah, even the dreams, are sometimes. Sometimes I will be calling people at 3 o'clock in the morning, like, "Hey, I have a dream, and I need to tell you like right now before I forget." So it's kind of hard
Mhm.
to turn it off.
yeah. Mm.
And that sounds
That's
quite
okay. That's the way
quite
it
I
is.
mean, for many of the people we've interviewed, that's
Yeah,
pretty much yeah, their experiences as well. There is no separation.
it is
It's
what it
just
is.
this is who I am, this is what I do.
Yep,
Yeah.
exactly, exactly. All right. So I kind of wanted to know what's important to you in our community. What's important to you? Well, and not even let's separate the community. What's important to you as that wedge?
The most important thing for me is for women of color, especially, but all women in general, to find their power and to
Mhm.
stand on their power. I I have a hard time understanding women and femme practicing religions that tell them that they are less than half,
Yeah,
Mhm.
that they are like
Mhm.
a quarter of a human, that
Mhm.
their voice doesn't matter, that their desires doesn't matter, that they don't even have power over their body and
yeah,
autonomy over their decisions to bring forth
Mhm.
life or not. So, as a woman who was born in one of the unfortunately most misogynistic countries in the world, um, women empowering themselves is my
Mhm.
priority.
yeah,
So I'm always trying to touch women and to pass on that message that yes, it is scary, yes, it is difficult, yes, it's a little bit of a lonely road, but you are not alone, because look, there are other women and femme and trans women and non-binary people, right, that are following and that are supporting you. But I have to say it begins with um, cisgender women, women of color, and then it goes down the line, right? Like transgender women, and then other women, and then white women, and et cetera, et cetera. We have some priorities. It's not that other people are not important, but we have more urgent matters.
right,
Yeah.
And I
right.
think
Yeah.
cisgender women of color, we are more in danger than most anybody else. And then transgender women of color, of course.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
so, because that is very important for me, I try to live in my truth. And I have been blessed with a wonderful partner that not only he cooks, but he's also just wonderful. Um, and he's a great knight of his queen. He's a great
Beautiful.
king and a great person. So you also lead by example, right? And if my husband were not a person that respect me on all my dimensions, then what kind of example I'm giving to my apprentices or my friends or my colleagues or you know.
No,
So
very true.
it is really important to live in my truth, in my power, and you don't even have to teach that. You can just be, and then when we witness each other, we transfer that information,
Yeah, and
intuitively.
that can be very challenging. I shouldn't say difficult, but sometimes people don't feel that comfort or security or what's the word? Power that that they need to be their true selves, to live in their power, to express their true nature. That can be a challenge. But
Yeah.
living by example gives that, I think it opens the door. People say, well, if she can, I can.
And here I have to tell you the story. I'm sorry,
Yeah,
but I
tell
have
me.
to tell you. And I think Star had heard this before. When I was very very young, 4 or 5 years old, my mom gave me a 5 pesos coin,
Mm,
which for a little 4-year-old girl, the big coin was as big as my hand. And my
mm-hmm.
mom gave me the coin, and she said to me, "You get to keep the 5 pesos if you're quiet for 5 minutes."
Ah,
And about a minute and a half later, I went and I tug on her skirt and I give her the money and I say, "Here's your money. I want to talk."
wow.
So it's been like that
Yes, that is awesome. That is such a
forever.
great story. Well,
And wanted
sorry.
to quickly let the person in the chat, Debbie Chapnick, know that hello as well, and thank you for joining us tonight.
Hey,
We appreciate it.
Debbie.
Okay.
Yes, thank you for being here, Debbie. Debbie's an old friend of mine. So, and she's also the publisher of Datura Press. So,
Oh,
just
nice, nice. Okay.
hey, Debbie. Um, le- Taking us in a different direction now with the conversation. Tell us about work with community. You do a lot of work with community. What's going on right now with you in community? What's the priority, or what's the thing that you really are connecting with right now when it comes to community?
Well, right now, I got very inspired at Parliament of the World Religions,
Mm,
and I'm a paradox sometimes, like all of us who work on liminal spaces, right? We could be a little paradoxical, and I have most of my ministry has been online. I've done a lot of work online, and then during the pandemic, coincidentally, I stopped doing online work. Don't
mm,
ask me why. And so I used to do women's circles and I stopped. And then after going to Parliament of the World Religions, I got so inspired by the Women's Village that I said, I need to go back to do the goddess work in the women's circles. So we just had our very first new and improved women's circles that happened on September 24th. And I'm going to be doing those women's circles every last Sunday of the month.
beautiful.
And I have them, we have to pay for the internet, we have to pay for Zoom, we have to pay for all those things. And we also have to pay the minister because the minister is doing work, right?
Yes.
Hmm.
And I
Absolutely.
am a great advocate for people who do labor need to get paid
Yeah,
Yes.
because
absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah.
people working for free,
That's
it
not.
doesn't benefit anybody.
Yeah.
So because I'm doing these women's circles and I need to get paid, I have a sliding scale. So people that can pay only $13, they pay $13. People that can pay
Hmm.
$20, they can pay $20. And people that can pay $26, they pay $26. So we had about a dozen women that came to the very first women's circle that signed up. Some of them show up, some of them didn't show up because it happens that way. But we
Right.
are hoping to continue holding that space for the community. So that is the one thing that I'm like right now really focusing on that. But I also do a lot of volunteer work. And I
Mm,
volunteer for Circle Sanctuary. I'm the manager of CSMP, the Circus Century Neighborhood podcast. So I put about
Ah,
20, 30 hours of work producing podcasts, doing interviews, um, engineering for the Spanish and Portuguese shows. So that is bringing
mm,
paganism throughout the world. And I also volunteer as a ESL teacher. So I teach
wow.
English as a second language 2 hours a day, 2 hours a week. And that is changing one person's life because they are
Yeah.
learning the tool of a language that they
Yeah.
need to exist here in the
Yeah.
United States. And I'm I'm always working with the community. I when I'm not volunteering
Yeah.
one thing, I'm volunteering another. Um, I do the coffee break with Rabbi Laura Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I do a couple of video blogs. So I do a lot of work that is for the benefit of the community that I don't get paid. And
Hmm.
that's why I need to get paid when I need to get paid. So please hire me for
Yes.
tarot
Yeah. Let's
readings
go
or
ahead.
healing or for your wedding or a funeral or baby blessing. I offer all those services. But
Mhm.
um, working with women, I think, is my priority at the moment. Doing the goddess work.
Excellent. 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 Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. So, what would you like to see us as witches accomplish?
I would like for us to stand in our power and allow the other person to stand on their power without judgment.
Mm,
There is a lot of, I practice this way. This is the right way of practicing. No, no, no. I
mhm.
practice
Yep.
this way. This is the right way of practicing. And you have to meet people where
Good.
they are, right?
Mm,
So not all of us have been feminists their whole life, right? Not all of us have been witches for our whole life. Um, in any human interaction, there is going to be hierarchies, there's going to be interaction, and there's going to be the human factor, right?
Mhm.
And there's a lot of cult of personality stuff going on around there. There's a lot of lack of access and accessibility to things. Some classes will be too pricey. I was looking at a class last night that I was interested into going. It's $1,000.
ooh,
Oh my
$1,000
goodness.
for 7 Zoom meetings. 1,000. And
Jeez.
I'm like, no, I cannot afford it, right? Because in order for me
Yeah.
to do that, I will have to charge $200 for a tarot reading, and I cannot do that, because that is out of this world. So I digress. If each one of us meet each other where we are, right? And
Yeah. Yeah.
maybe the way I practice is the best way to practice for one Laura. And
Mhm.
the way that Laura practices is probably not the best way to practice for one star. And that is none of my business. She needs to practice the way she needs to practice because that's what works for her. So to understand that we as witches are as diverse as many hairs I have on my hair,
yeah.
not two of us are the exact same, nor we practice the exact same way. So to be respectful of ourselves, it always begins with self. Be respectful of your own craft and then be
Mhm.
respectful of other people's craft. I think I would like to see that. I would like to stop seeing this
The
little
judgment.
movement that it goes around and around.
Mm. And you see that a lot on
That would
Facebook.
be
That's a lot
amazing.
all over Facebook and everything, and the judgment
Oh,
and everything else, and the little
yeah.
W and the big W, and I'm like, "Are you-
Yeah. That's all over social
Yeah.
media.
I'm
That's
just
all
like,
over
what
many
the
places.
fuck are you talking about? I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
Oh,
you know,
you can swear?
and I
Oh
just
my
walk
God.
away. I
Yep.
just walk away.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, you can.
I will just walk away.
Don't worry, Laura. You can say whatever you need to
I didn't
say.
know
It's
you could
fine.
swear, but I would have started swearing earlier. Anyway, I think we get too caught up on the little ways of
Mhm.
practicing,
Yeah.
and we are not going deep into the practice. And I have these wonderful icons that I adore, right?
Mhm.
Selena Fox and her activism, she cannot
Yeah.
turn it off. Um,
Yes.
Phyllis Scrott, who always is saying, the world needs her witches. The world needs her witches.
Mhm.
We need to be doing the work. And then like Byron Ballard, who's always saying like, don't you have ancestors to attend, people to feed, land to take care of? I listened to
Mhm.
this woman, that came before me, not too long before me because we're not that far in age, but
Mhm.
I look at them and I'm like, they're doing the work and they don't give a hoot about who's doing what and who's wearing what. And,
Exactly.
they,
Exactly.
they
I'm the same way.
Precisely.
I'm the same way. I don't give a shit. I honestly
It's
don't.
not, yeah,
You
that
know what it is that I object to when you mention it? Because we see it
mm,
all the time. And
mhm.
I don't care about your traditions. I really don't. That's your
Mhm.
thing, and this is my thing.
Mhm.
And don't bring the dogma from the regular everyday religions into what we have. The whole
Mhm.
idea of paganism or being who we are is to start our own things. But you cannot then take
And
it and bring that dogma into us and say, shove it down our throats and say, you've got to accept the dogma again.
you know,
because a
I
lot of
think part of
a lot of
you
people
think
part of, I'm sorry, Rhonda, a lot of
no,
people
that's
took off the crucifix and put
Right.
on the
exactly,
goddess, but they are practicing the exact same way.
Exact. Oh my God.
precisely.
Yes, I am
That's
clapping because
exactly
that is
it.
so true.
But here's part of what I see happening though. We're going through another, let's say, I don't want to say a resurgence, but we're going through another shift.
Yeah.
So those people who were early days in paganism, so we're talking 30, 40, 50 years ago, those take off the crucifix, put in the face of the goddess. Now we're moving past that and we're acknowledging that we don't need to have as much of that dogma to do the work. It's just that was getting between what people were doing. It was becoming this is the thing we have to fashion ourselves
Yeah,
after,
yeah.
but it was getting between us doing the actual work. So yes,
And you know
boom,
what?
spot on.
It's about women's rights and people's rights and the
Yes.
earth. And I mean, for crying out loud, we say we are earth based
Yes.
Hmm.
and we put the earth at the end,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and if we continue treating the planet
The
as
way we are.
horrible as we treat women, we're
Hmm.
not going to have a planet left to the children. I don't have kids because I choose not to have children because this world, I 30 years ago, I was watching the news and I was listening and I was like, I don't want to bring a child to this world if it's going to be what it is. And now we're living it,
Yeah.
right? And we have the power to shift it. We have the power to shift it. But we are so
Yeah.
concerned about, like, oh, should it be maiden, mother, or crone? Because that excludes this and that and the other. Should
Very.
we do the Gardnerian or the Alexandrian? Or do you, boo? Do you?
Yes.
Do what you need
Thank
to
you.
do, but take care of the earth, take care of yourself, and
Yeah.
stand in
And
your
don't worry
power.
about anybody calling you the big W and the low W.
Yeah.
And I really don't give a flying fuck. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That gets in
Yeah.
between. It really it means nothing at the end of the day because as you're saying, just
And
take
and
care.
and
Yeah.
and
Take care.
Rhonda, you mentioned something. You said
Mm,
we're going through changes, right? Yes and
mhm.
no. In a way, we are going through a lot of transformation because especially with all those eclipses coming up, that's all transformative and transformational that's coming up, and we're seeing changes. Unfortunately, many are taking step those changes back in time, not changes.
Trying to drag it backwards.
Yes,
There are
not
people
changes going
kicking and
forward.
screaming,
Yeah,
not wanting to change.
right.
There's truth to that. We
And
see
I'm
that
just
in
like,
all
I
forms,
they
politics included.
yes,
Politics included, people don't want to change. They're kicking and
yeah.
screaming, but the inevitable is the inevitable, and change is inevitable.
Yeah.
That will happen.
No, the
There will be
changes
those
will
who are kicking
happen.
and screaming,
The
though.
changes are going to happen whether we come with it or not, kicking and screaming.
That's right.
It's whether the
That's it.
human being that we all are go with those
Mhm.
changes, because that's where we're
They're
running
going to kick
into.
and
The
scream.
changes are still
Yes.
occurring, but the human beings that we are not with the program. They just not.
No, they're fighting it because
Oh,
their
good
people
goddess,
don't
they
like
are. They
change.
are
People don't
so
like the
fighting it.
change.
You
Eventually,
know.
it will happen,
And you
though.
know what?
Eventually.
With that
There'll be those
said,
who never want
with
to change.
that said, I believe because I do a lot of interfaith work, right? I do a
Mm,
lot of interfaith work. So why are we expecting Christian people to act like pagans? They
Right.
want,
Yeah.
right? The
Mhm.
same way we cannot expect a Muslim woman to act as if she was a Catholic woman, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Mhm.
I, as a priestess of the goddess or a woman of the goddess or a witch of the goddess, cannot act like if I was
A Christian.
Alexandrian
Oh, right.
or,
Mhm.
part of like the this and that tradition, because that's not who I
That's not.
am.
Yeah.
So
Right.
the idea is not to change people and make them to the way that we want it. The idea is that, hey, you do you, but can we all pull together and help the earth survive?
Yeah.
Can we all
Mhm.
pull together and stop killing people of color? Can we all pull
Mhm.
together and stop ordering on women's bodies?
Yeah.
Can we all
Yeah.
pull together and help trans youth exist?
Yes.
They are things that go beyond your belief system,
Right.
and they are infringing on human rights.
Well, it's
Mhm.
not just even that. Just like how you are completely baffled by women that basically go against themselves as a woman. I'm baffled by witches that go against nature or anything within the natural sense or the natural norm. And I'm sitting there going, and you're calling yourself a witch? Because I'm puzzled. And I just walk away because, we have to meet people where they are. And if that's where you are,
Mhm.
I will walk away from that and walk before I even say something or bitch slap your ass. Because
Mhm.
I can't. I have to walk away.
Girl, I don't have time for that. When I see that kind of thing, like literally,
Mhm.
I see it on Facebook, right? This one of this tradition, this one
Yep,
of that
yep,
tradition, and da, 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 da. And I'm like, you know what? I have to go and
yep,
donate my time to the ESL
yep.
class, or I have to go donate my time to
Yeah.
do another podcast, or I
Life
have to
stage
go
left.
feed my dog, or walk my dog, or feed my snake, or
There's so
help
many
my
things, right?
husband.
Yeah,
Like, I'm too
Yeah.
busy
yeah, yeah. I
to
don't see it. I walk
do,
away. I
yeah,
That's
I,
the
I
answer.
don't look anymore.
yeah,
I can't.
yeah.
Anyways, because we are gonna keep going because we
Yeah.
love this topic so much.
Yeah. So
Okay,
let
Rhonda,
me just
go
ask
ahead, girl.
you, what projects do you have coming up? What projects or what things are you thinking about doing?
Oh my goodness. Well, it's the season of the witch. I've been saying all day, poor
Yeah.
Donovan, wherever he is, that Donovan with the sun, the season of the witch is what Mariah Carey is for that awful, awful winter song. But anyway,
Yes, yes.
um,
Yep.
it is horrible. Tell me you like it.
I don't even look at it. I honestly
Uh,
do. To each his
Anyway,
own.
so
Amen.
October, like one does October, right? It's super busy. So I'm
mhm.
very excited about a number of things. The first one, we already talked about the women's circles, right? So the women's
Mhm.
circle for October is going to be October 29, Halloween weekend. I don't care. I'm having a women's circle, even if I'm there talking to myself. We're going to have a women's circle on October 29th. Halloween parties can wait. Samhain is on the 31st, so you can still come to a women's circle.
Mhm.
And I'm super stoked. I've been doing a class that I have been doing monthly the whole year, a series of spells. So I have done
Mm.
candle spells and moon spells and sun spells and nature spells and cleansing spells and abundance spells, etc., etc., etc. October is going to be ancestors spells. So that class is going to be amazing. Um,
Mm.
that's going to be
Excellent.
October 8th, 7 o'clock online, $25 because I don't charge $1,000 for a class. And yeah, yeah, maybe later. But anyway, so that I'm very excited about. And I'm also very excited about, um, um, I have been having a lot of life changing experiences since Parliament of the World Religions. And one of them is to call into bring to work my indigenous side. For a long time, I have kept my indigenuity kind of hidden, kind of like
Mm.
this is the indigenous Laura that is private, this is the pagan Laura that is public. And the goddess is like, I have enough of your shit. You're going to be a whole witch doing the whole work
Thank you.
as a whole of
Right on.
you. So I'm
Yeah.
very, very excited because on Friday the 13th and the 14th and the 15th, I'm going to be offering a new moon cleansing that is not my regular cleansing with pagan undertones and Reiki. This is going to be truly indigenous cleansing. So
Fabulous.
I'm offering that for the first time. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if I will continue offering that as a regular service. But for now, I'm listening to the goddess who's telling me that I need to present myself as a whole of who I am and do the indigenous work because it really has been life changing experiences that the goddess is like, hey, you're indigenous. Work from that perspective because that is what's needed. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do that. And of course, I have all this like classes and presentations and events, and all of it is on my link tree. So if people want to go into my link tree, which I just updated last night, coincidentally,
Fabulous.
I'm going to Pagan Pride, Northwestern Indiana, to teach about Day of the Dead. I don't know anything, but the one thing that I can tell you I know about something is Day of the Dead.
Mm.
And I have done, this year is my first year that I'm only doing one Day of the Dead thing. The whole season, I'm like,
Interesting.
what? It just so happened that way, and it's going to happen in Northwestern Indiana Pagan Pride at 2 o'clock. And I'll be there teaching people about the Day of the Dead altar, and we're going to create one altar. So it's going to be awesome. And of course, working and getting hired for whoever hires me for readings, for baby blessings, for whatever. I'm a priestess too. I'm a minister, so please put me to work so I can continue volunteering and doing all the things that I love doing.
All right. Thank
Beautiful.
you. All right. And Rhonda
Thank you.
is placing all of your information across the board. So thank you so much.
Yes.
You mentioned I was going to ask you about events, but you already mentioned all of it. So it's all
Yes.
good. And we want to thank you so much for being with us tonight. Yes.
It
Thank
has
you
been
so much. We
fabulous.
really
I
enjoyed this
mean,
very much.
seriously.
This was a great conversation,
We
and we will invite you back another time. Thank you again.
Absolutely. Whenever you
absolutely.
want me
Thank
back,
you so
I'll be
much.
back. Thank
Awesome.
you. Thank you. Thank
Yay.
you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Take care.
And
Have a good one.
and now a word from our sponsors.
All right. All right. So tonight we are going to go and do four of them. I was going to do more, but it's just too lengthy. We're going to do Cancer, Leo, Virgo,
Yeah.
and Libra tonight. And about the
And I'm
decans
grabbing
again. And so for the Cancer decans on June 21st to June 30th, decan 1. That's one of the water element signs. Those they show up as the stereotypical cancers, okay, and they are ruled by the moon, plus emotional, sensitive, intuitive, good at making decisions, conflict avoidant, and nurturing. Alhina
that.
in Gemini has the greatest influence in this decan, followed by the Announcer star Muzam in Canis Major. This star is said to be common in the charts of people like broadcasters, and there's definitely a media influence here. These people are extremely opinionated and have to have their say in everything. It's impossible to put a muzzle on them. Try. Sorry, that sounded funny. Try
That's
to
good.
gag them and watch out for a rabid fit. Disagree with them if you want to see them roll the whites of their eyes. Cancer devotion comes only their very closest family members only. They will get this sort of treatment and no one else. Try to enforce this without earning it, and your pleasant will swivel its head around to Pollux's evil face, start foaming its mouth, and looking like Reagan from The Exorcist. That's what the declan, those who are born in that time. Uncompromising activist, brave, fearless, and sometimes barking mad. Formidable,
Mhm.
outspoken fighters for the underdog and are relentless chasers of the truth. A fascination with the magic and the moonlight sky at night is one of their things as well. All the above attributes combine to make an excellent journalist and paparazzi. They will mercilessly pursue a story to the bitter end in business and commerce. The same style applies with everything. This deccan can seem a little schizophrenic. On one hand, they are loving, soft, and gooey, fluffy bunnies, and the next, they are raging werewolves. Venus,
Mhm.
the Deccan ruler, also has two sides to her, just like the Gemini twin. She is the Babylonian goddess of both love and war, can be manipulative and scheming when they want to be, but will also make fantastic actors and performers.
Mhm. Mhm.
Okay, let me go to
So,
it. And oh, and the last part is just to give you an example of the type of Deccan ones born within that time. Diana, Princess of Wales, Prince William, Edward VIII, Erin Brockovich, Helen Keller, George Orwell, Dan Brown, George Michael, Ariana Grande, Debbie Harry, Liv Taylor, Carly Simon, Missy Elliott, Cindy Lauper, sorry,
mhm.
Pamela
Mhm.
Anderson Lee, J.J. Abrams, I love his movies, Meryl Streep, Kathy Bates, Olivia de Havilland, Selma Blair, Janet Farrar, Pierre Cardin, Jean-Jacques Rousseau, Mike Tyson, I know I love him, right? And Michael
Mhm.
Phelps. That's just a few of them, but to give you an example
Yeah.
of what that Deccan 1 cancer in cancer is like. Okay. For
Yes.
the Deccan 2, those born July 1st to July 10th, they're ruled by Scorpio. And well, they're Scorpio decans, but they're ruled by
Mhm.
Pluto. Plus, they're very practical, a bit stubborn,
Mhm.
a deep thinker, sentimental, and a great caretaker. Those born within this decan then will be more intense and inwardly focused than other cancers. This decan too, they have a tendency to be ruled by both Mercury and Mars as well, which is that Scorpio triplicity. Okay, the Sun scorches his way through the constellations of the twins, the greater dog, the great ship, the lynx, and the unicorn, which contains probably the most famous stars in the sky, Sirius. The mix of water with the heat of Sirius make these people incredibly sultry. We mustn't forget that Cancer is also a cardinal sign, which means it has leadership qualities. So take this fluffy wolf, throw in Mercury, the trickster, heat it up with Mars and the dark twin, Pollux, and you get a very intriguing breed of Cancerian indeed. In myth, Mercury conversed between the gods and the underworld. He is a bridge and mediator between the two. Here we have the guide, a light in the a light in the inky black night. Dogs can guide the blind. Dogs can guide the blind, just as the stars guided the ships. They come across like
Mhm.
old souls in a child's body, which can be a bit disconcerting. At the same time, Sirius was Orion's trusted hunting dog. For the Egyptians, Orion is Osiris and Sirius is Isis, his beloved wife. This goddess totally fits with the side of Cancer that we know as the devoted, nurturing moon. Isis' association with Cancer, Decan, too, gives the ability to resurrect and the ability to breathe life into the dead. So she's very nurturing. Much of the
Mhm.
heebie jeebies towards Cancer Decan, too, comes from the fear of the hidden, the dark, and the subconscious. Fairy tales are very Cancerian. How many of them feature the moon, big bad wolves, evil
Mhm.
stepmothers, unicorns, and twins? Mercury, as the co ruler of this decan, brings in the connection with children. These folks can live in an eternal childhood where everything is magical and surreal. This certainly shows up in some of the artists and musicians that are here. Some of them remain charmingly young at heart until old age, retaining the bounce and velvety soft veneer of a puppy. Negatively, they can remain stubbornly childish and refuse to grow up and expect the world to take care of them until they drop.
Yep.
Okay, so some examples are Nikola Tesla, Henry VIII of England, George W. Bush, hey, the USA.
Hmm.
When I saw that, I was just like, yeah.
Yes.
Julius Caesar, 14 Dalai Lama, Julian Assange, Bill Cosby, O.J. Simpson, John D. Rockefeller, Lindsay Lohan, Tom Hanks, Kevin Bacon, Tom Cruise, Sylvester Stallone, Angelica Houston, Ringo Starr, Yul Brynner, 50
Okay.
Cent, Suzanne Vega, Courtney Love, Nancy Reagan, Jerry Hall, Giorgio Armani, Amanda Knox, and Leona Helmsley. We'll leave it at that. And there's a Malala Yousafzai. I was
Usasai.
like, I don't know if I bastardized that name, so I didn't want to say it, but there you go. That's just
Malala
some of them.
Usasai.
That's
Yeah.
just some of them. And the third decan for Cancer, July 11th to 22nd, Pisces decan, ruled by Neptune, plus creative, imaginative, a daydreamer, loyal in relationships, and a bit forgetful. Individuals born under this decan will be more creative and spiritually minded than other cancers. Okay, the sun shimmers through the twins, the unicorn, the great bear, the great dog, and the lesser dog. These are your true lunatic Cancerians with the influence of the famous constellation of the twins, Castor and Pollux. These twins were rivals, but also inseparable. We are dealing here with polarities, good and evil, the living and the dead, left brain and right brain, lunar and solar. In love, Cancer Decan 3 are utterly devoted to a fault. This can be quite overwhelming for their beloved. They need some artistic or musical outlet for them to process their deep, dark passions and euphoric highs. When they are up, they are flying, exuberant, charming, fun, and playful. When they are down, though, it can actually be quite scary. It is often a shock to see them this way to those who've only seen Cancer Three's sunny side. These folk can sometimes find it hard to balance the two sides. On the other hand, on one hand, they can be totally together, organized, responsible, and be perfect parents. Their nurturing side pulls out all the stops when they have someone to look after. But, and if I forgot, they're cooking, cleaning, and nursing those in need. They love all that. The Cancerian lunar influence often makes them too trusting, but they also have a great skill with words and can tell some whopping lies to save their own skin if they really have to. However, when Cancer Decan 3 has no one to care for, it can all fall frighteningly apart. Unbelievably, these lunar types find it really hard to look after themselves. They can be athletic and maintain their body beautiful. It's very important to them. Like bodybuilders, gymnasts, ballerinas, a lot of those types are all Decan 3 Cancerians. The moodiest of all the crabs, never knowing if they will be sunny or shadowy. Their emotions, being so colorful, are great for creativity. As artists, they throw themselves right into their work. There is no holding back. The feelings flood out into the canvas and are able to touch the public profoundly. And so people with the Cancerian Decan 3 strongly tenants like to live life on the edge and are always full of surprises. Some of the
Hmm.
examples are Angela Merkel, Nelson Mandela, Robin Williams, Harrison Ford, Benedict Cumberbatch, William Defoe, Natalie Wood, Brigitte Nielsen, Donald Sutherland, Patrick Stewart, David Hasselhoff, Diana Rigg, Selena Gomez, Ian Curtis, Carlos Santana, Cat Stevens, Neptune Discovery, Norway Massacre, Rembrandt, and Ernest Hemingway. Those are some of them. Rhonda, you get the
Hey,
Biblical decans, please.
I'm just gonna wrap up, and two more would be my twins that fall into that third decade. And trust and believe. I agree with everything you just said. So, moving on to Leo, one of the first fire signs. So here we are, Decan 1, July 23rd to August 1st, Decan 1, Leo Decan, ruled by the sun and They are bright, playful, charming, dignified, prideful, and a bit egotistical. Leo Decan 1 are extremely dedicated to their field of endeavor. Some may pursue a career for the sole reason of achieving high status. They need to be seen as the boss, the leader of the pack, or the queen bee. They do not like to play the role of the underling. However, they will doff their hat and play the loyal servant if they have to. Anything to get up the ladder. Watch your back, though, Caesar. These folk are trying on their crown when you're not looking. The biggest problem for this deckhand is coveting what others have. They can be overly defensive if threatened. The sidereal cancer shell can harden into Saturn armor. Encased in that hard skull through, though, is an incredible brain. The Egyptians saw the crab as the sacred scarab beetle. If you look at the beetle from above, it resembles a brain. Just want to make certain I'm in the right spot. Yeah, yes. It resembles the brain. It represents the path of enlightenment in that it balances the right and left hemispheres. Leo Decan 1 has equal amounts of logic and intuition, and they use this to create practical objects that are also beautiful. Everything they create is built to last, has a solid foundation, and their craftsmanship is second to none. Leo Decan 1 has prophetic ability because they have an unusually strong connection with their ancestors and recently passed relatives with the star Proserpine. I'm sorry, I did not get that right. Those folk may even travel with an entourage of spirit guides, which means their lives could feel very fated. These lions may have near death experiences or be guided away from a fatal situation just in the nick of time. This gives them the famous lion's courage. They may feel like they are the proverbial cat with nine lives and be quite fearless because of this. Some may even make a career from the connection to their guardian angels. A good example is oh gosh, I'm not saying that right. Precipice.
Praise be. I would say, just say a good example of that is
Yeah,
in action.
in action is an astrologer. So they're good at being astrologers. They deal with birth charts, very appropriate for the gate of men birthplace and the symbolism of the nativity scene. Some examples of these Leos in that first decan would be Carl Jung, Benito Mussolini, Jacqueline Kennedy, Onassis, Monica Lewinsky, Henry Ford, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Amelia Earhart, Kevin Spacey, Helen Mirren, love her,
I
Sandra
know her
Bullock,
too. Yes.
Lisa Kudrow, yeah, Matt LeBlanc, Hilary Swank, Daniel Radcliffe, J.K. Rowling, Wes Craven, Wesley Snipes, Mick Jagger, Jennifer Lopez, George Bernard Shaw, Emily Bronte, and Jessica Adams. On to our Decan 2 Leos, August 2nd through the 11th, ruled by Jupiter. Plus, they're very freedom loving, rebellious, romantic, scattered, and have a positive outlook on life. Leo Decan 2 is ruled by Jupiter in both systems, Sagittarius triplicity. The sun blazes through the lynx, the water snake, the lion's mouth, the great bear, the crab, and the great ship. You can see straight away that these are a different breed of cat from the sedate and Saturnian Leo Decan 1. In this decan, Jupiter gives Leo even more fire, and the influence of the defensive crab is replaced by the overtly passionate water snake. This is less of the religious influence. There is less of the religious influence too, for the energy is primal, spontaneous, and uncensored. This does not mean these people aren't spiritual. It's just that they don't like bowing down to a guru or following established paths to enlightenment. These pioneers will always prefer the road less traveled. Jupiter ruling here will, of course, exaggerate their bad traits as well as their good. And let's face it, with a big cat, these traits are going to be extreme one way or the other. Leo is known as the dramatic sign. So here we will certainly get full blown theatrics. These folk are outspoken, fearless in their reasoning, and dive into debates with gusto, combining Zeus with the Lion King, and you get someone who relishes power and very happy to give orders. Of course, they will be accused of being bossy, but at the same time, they are wonderful at organizing when most people can't be bothered. Let's see if we have some examples. Leo Decan, two examples would be Barack Obama, Fidel Castro, Marine Le Pen, George Soros, George the Sixth of the UK, Mata Hari, Andy Warhol, yeah, Mata Hari,
I know,
John
right?
Merrick,
Right.
John Merrick, otherwise known as the Elephant Man, Hulk Hogan, Neil Armstrong, Helena Blavatsky, and Alexander Fleming, Percy B. Shelley, Alfred Tennyson, Jean Benet Ramsey, Charlize Theron, Kylie Jenner, David Duchovny, Martin Sheen, Lucille Ball, Melanie Griffith, Dustin Hoffman, Antonia Banderas, Eddie Fisher, Louis Vuitton, Whitney Houston, Neil Armstrong, and many more. Third decan, wrapping up Leo. This would be August 12th to the 22nd, ruled by Mars, plus, and they are rather, daring, passionate, impulsive, stubborn, opinionated, and kind. All right, the sun lords it over the constellations of the lion, the great bear, the little bear, the mariner's compass, and the water snake. This is the lion's domain. Leo Decan 3 is the most stereotypical Leo of them all. The new generation will lose Reculus to Virgo, so they may be a tad less bombastic, but not as much. There are still plenty of stars left in the shimmering lion. The main theme with Leo Decan 3 is their belief in the divine right of kings, i.e., themselves. they, they are always right. Their rule is absolute. Any challenge to their authority is seen as a betrayal of loyalty. Loyalty and more loyalty. Yep, this is the number one demand of their loved ones. The number one demand. In return for their devotion to you, and by golly, they are devoted. They are really devoted. They expect you to defend the values of the pride to the nth degree. Any deviation is a sign of rebellion and must be crushed. Leo Decan 3 will give you the strong leadership you desire, but only if you submit to their authority 100%. Another trait is bitchiness, but oh, how they are entertaining with it. Yes, they take this ability to cut someone dead with one-liners to a high art form. Again, this is quite awesome, but extremely painful if you find yourself in their firing line. Bottom line, the lion is a man-eating beast. If it can be bitterly cruel when threatened. You really want these folk on your side, and they will fight and defend you until they have spilt their last drop of blood. Blood is a big thing with them. Blood ties, bloody mindedness, blood boiling in their veins, and they don't squirm at the sight of it either. The negative side of these lions is cruelty and vengeance, since the malefic Mars pushes an already fiery Leo Decan 3 to the very limit. Leo Decan 3's mates may get the feeling every move they make is being watched and recorded somewhere. It's a little unnerving when when in the lion's presence you really should not leave until the mighty paw has decreed your time together has expired. Even if they get infuriatingly bossy, it's quite hard to leave them anyway because they are so darn sexy. How how can one resist such regal poise, passion, stunning self-confidence, and hot-blooded sex drive? So there is just a chink in the armor, though. Okay, let's just say it. Betrayal, minor disloyalty, like taking sides against them in a political debate, might warrant a day of lion huff. But sexual unfaithfulness is high treason. This is their mortal wound. They will crawl off into a cave for weeks, months, or even years because of it.
Oh,
Just some examples of that Leo third decan would be Napoleon Bonaparte, Bill Clinton, Gene Roddenberry, Madonna, Roman Polanski, Edward Norton, Alfred Hitchcock, Mae West. I love her.
I know, right?
Robert De Niro, Steve Martin, Ben Affleck, Sean Penn, Robert Redford, Kim Cattrall, Halle Berry, Patrick Swayze, Madeline Stowe, Christian Slater, Matthew Perry, Deborah Messing, David Gene Kelly, H.P. Lovecraft, Princess Margaret, Princess Anne, Usain Bolt, Henry,
Theory
Magic John, yeah, Madonna, Madonna,
and Sean Penn,
in
Madonna and Sean Penn.
Madonna and Champagne. Okay, India, South Korea, and Pakistan.
All right. That was great.
All right. We got a lot more, but we are way over time right now. We are already past 11 o'clock.
Okay. So then why don't we leave the next ones for next week?
Mhm.
Um
Yeah.
Hello, what is coming next in my love life with Jasper sign? He talks to me. Oh dear God, we can't take questions like that right now. But thank you,
We are a
everyone.
li-
Oh, and thank you, Laura, for being here. Yeah. So we'll
yeah.
pick up the rest of them because it's very time consuming and it's a lot of work. So we will do that the rest of them for the astrology part next week. Okay.
Yeah. And let us still draw a card. I just want to wrap us up this
Yes.
week
Yes.
with
Yes.
pulling a
Yes.
card
Wrap up
just
with
to
the
do
card.
that. So,
Okay.
hey,
So
just
we
give
will
us
draw a
1 second.
card for
Yes.
the elements that we worked with that we did speak of, which is what we did what. Okay. So the two signs we did tonight was what? Uh, Cancer
We did
and Leo.
Cancer
And
and
Leo. So
Leo.
we'll pull the card for the personal decan for the Cancer and Leo decans 1, 2, and 3 for each of those. So one card we're
Yes.
pulling that will represent for that. I think that's best. And
Yes.
we'll do Virgo and Libra next week. Phew.
Yeah.
Yeah, we began a
We
little
had such a conversation with Laura.
Laura
We
and then
went
it ran
way
us a
over,
bit
but it
late.
was
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah, it was a fun
Whoa.
conversation. Yes. We're so grateful to her. Okay. So let's pull that card and see what we come up with. Okay. Oh, I've got 8 of Pentacles. And mine, I have a jumper that fell out. I'm like, what's going on? Why are you
Wow.
going all the way there? But you go ahead, sweetie. Tell us what's going
I
on.
have the Ace of Pentacles, and that for me is just, I'm going to just acknowledge the aces. I love the aces because they are truly that part of, it's coming down from spirit. It's that energy of here's that opportunity to actually manifest a thing. Here's the opportunity to bring things into the world. And I know this it's earth energy. I know this is earth energy, and we were speaking about water sign Cancer and sun and fire sign Leo, but I do want to acknowledge that this energy is the energy that begins things. And that does speak to that energy of starting and manifesting and taking the energy from each of those signs and saying, what is that each one is gifted at bringing into the world?
Right.
That is what I'm seeing with this Ace of Pentacles. What does each sign and each decan of the sign, what are their strengths and what do they bring into the world? What do they manifest? And I think it just reminds us that we all have to look at our gifts, our talents, and work with our strengths. Which also echoes back to one of the things that Laura was saying also earlier about stepping into our own power.
Mm-hmm.
This is the power of manifesting, bringing those things into the world. So for each one of those signs,
All
Leo
right.
and Cancer,
Okay.
lean
So
into
this,
your
and it's
power.
so funny. I have Pentacles as well. The jumper was the
Mm,
King of Pentacles, and the one that I pulled was the 8 of Pentacles. And
wow.
as I'm looking at them, and it's so funny because you had Pentacles as well. And again, it's more on
Hmm.
the stability side. But one of the things about the water signs and the air sign is they crave stability. So this is
Hmm.
something that they need and it balances them out. So I think maybe
Okay.
that's the reason why a lot of it was drawn tonight. Plus, I would add in the full moon. And
Yes. Yeah.
The Aries super full moon tonight also
Yeah.
plays a part with this because it's the last full moon before all the eclipses happen. It's the last full moon, super full moon that they'll have until
Yeah.
2025. So
Yes.
tonight's full moon and everything else that we are doing with the tarot kind of triggers us to do two things. It's very, very potent moon for doing two
Mm,
things: bringing things in and
mhm,
releasing things that are holding you back from getting
mm,
those things. So if you look
mm.
at the Eight of Pentacles, he is taking his
Oh,
time and nurturing everything that's there to bring that money and stability in. His home and
mhm,
everything is all about what he wants to have and settle down into. And then with
mhm,
the King of Pentacles, he's like, let's command this shit. Let's make it
mhm,
work and let us make, all of it combined. And I think
mhm.
between your beginning one and all of this, and with this moon, as well as the ones that we talked about tonight, this is all apropos. It's all about taking care
Make
of
it
the
happen.
stability and not always living only in the water and the air, because we need all of that and that stability for it to ground us as well as to balance us out. So
Yep.
I think it's all necessity. Okay. All right.
Awesome.
Thank you all. And again, we want to thank Laura Gonzalez for being
Yeah.
here with us tonight. And if you can join us next Friday, October 6th to 10 p.m., where we will have our guest is Dr. Tiffany Marie Butler. And
And
we
here
will
we
continue.
go.
All right. Thank you. All right.
Yes.
And we will continue with the decans, with where we left off with Virgo and Libra, and hopefully maybe Capricorn. They're very
Yes.
in depth, so we will try our best to be able to do it. And again, we're very happy to have you guys here tonight, and thank you so much. Sorry about the longness of it. And Rhonda, come on, girl, tell us what we need to.
It is, thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you everyone for joining us in the chat. We really appreciate
Yes,
that. It
yes,
was
yes.
an extended show tonight. We have so much to go through, but please do like, share, subscribe. We really appreciate you all joining us every week. We truly do.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, and we'll see you all next week.
Yay.
Have
Bye.
a
And
great
have a
week,
wonderful night.
everybody.
And
Have a
happy,
great
blessed
night.
Aries super full moon.
Yes.
Yay.
Good night,
Night.
everyone.